Hi, thanks for visiting my channel. Today I hope you'll stick around and paint this sunflower and pumpkin watercolor arrangement with me. Today I'm using my Sonnet and SeimiArt watercolors. I also have a metallics palette that I think I purchased from Hobby Lobby a year or two ago. I'm using my size 6 and size 3 round intuition brushes by Artegria. I also have my ceramic palette ready. I have 2 jars of water, one for rinsing my dirty brush and one for painting. I'm using my 350 GSM watercolor paper from Dollar Tree, and I have a clean cloth for dabbing any mistakes and also blotting my brushes. Let's get started. So today I've already sketched out my drawing. This is a watering can or some kind of weathered can and sunflowers and pumpkins. And I want to start with my sunflowers. That'll give them some time to dry a little in between layers. So I'm starting with my yellow deep. And I'm just going to go in and I've kind of determined the directions on these. This one's going to be a more open flower, just slightly tilting away. And so I want to just get these imperfect petals in here. I'm using my size 6 brush. And the reason I'm using that, even for such a small painting, is because I do want to keep these petals kind of loose and broad even. And I just like this brush for that at the, at this time. I will probably switch it. I'm making these little slashes. They're just kind of the idea of more layers of petals, kind of in and around these. A couple of things up here, just not every petal, but just kind of adding some extra layers and detail. One of the things that can be kind of a struggle for me is just keeping these sunflowers kind of somewhat uniform in size, or at least making sense. And so for me, I think that drawing this from the beginning really does help me to kind of have more of a vision for that and just kind of keep track of what I'm doing a bit better. And now, because this flower here is tilted over, these petals are actually the closer petals, and that's why I just do them in a shorter manner and kind of to the side like they're leaning. And I'll kind of do the same thing up here. This is my the back side of the flower that's kind of away from me. And of course, this is a smaller flower as well. Just kind of a flower that's opening up a bit. Forget these little slashes and layers. So fun. I love that sunflowers are really so versatile that, as far as seasonal, you can paint them in the summer, you can paint them in the autumn. They have a long season, I feel, as far as artwork and, in reality too. So now I want to take my Indian red. It's just a really good brown orange. And I'm going to go in and do a couple of these on the left-hand side and the bottom. And then I just want to rinse that a little and just come in kind of with some water. That's really a little too much water. So that is kind of the the downside of using the bigger brush, but that's okay. So I'll just go back into that, and I think it's still wet enough that I can drop in more shadow. And see how I'm just trying to be sure that as I go to the right, each section gets just a little bit lighter. And now I'm just trying to pull the top, I feel is a little dark. So I'm just trying to pull that pigment down because that would actually have some natural highlight. So I think I'll just go ahead and go into this pumpkin. And while my brush is wet, I can kind of pre-wet that. And that way it can just kind of bleed how it wants to. And I'll soften that in just a minute. I want to kind of let some of it kind of settle. Go back into this other pumpkin with a bit more shadow. And you know, I'm not worried about these pumpkins being perfect. They're just some little touches here. But as I kind of blend this, just I've blotted my brush off a bit so that as I blend, hopefully it doesn't just you know, drop too much water in there, eradicate too much. Okay, I like them. And I think I will do my leaves, or at least get some leaves going in there before I switch my brush. Because I like these leaves to be, well, first of all, kind of quick. And using a bigger brush, you know, these are kind of sizable leaves, and so that's helpful. And then I just want to keep it nice and loose. So I'm just kind of pulling and dragging my brush. Kind of want to get in to some of these petals just a little. This dragging and kind of squiggling is how I keep these from being a little too uniform. For me, it helps me have that nice sunflower leaf shape, I think. And I'm having a lot of fun making them like that. So I'm just careful around this pumpkin, and then just kind of bring that down one more time, maybe. I have one right here. And, you know, I mentioned this quite a bit, but as I'm doing my leaves especially, I like to just pay attention to the values so that I don't end up with some, you know, one dark green leaf or anything like that. I want to have some balance in there, not necessarily matching on both sides, but just, you know, this value of green is not the only dark value of green. There are other dark values. I'm just trying to have a little leaf there behind this pumpkin, maybe. And your leaves don't have to be solid, and especially the edges. You know, these sunflower leaves, they tend to have some, jagged kind of edges. And now see, this leaf is quite dark, so now it's behind something, and so it makes sense. But let's just go ahead and darken this one too. Yeah, that works for me. Have one down here. I want to be careful. This one kind of goes behind the handle of my watering can. You know, I don't always sketch, but I've noticed lately I have really been enjoying doing a little sketch first and then adding watercolor. And see, I would not say that I am a drawer. So this is kind of new for me, but I do feel like it helps me in my planning, and so I like it. I'm having fun with it. And I hope that maybe it will help me to get a little more brave with some attempts at line and wash, because I do really want to do that more. I have tried it a time or two, and it's just fun. It's a very I think it can be a very loose, fun way to watercolor. So okay, I have some of these little pumpkin vines, and I just want to go ahead and use this the pigment that's on my brush. Let's see. I want to keep it nice and light and loose. And I have these little pumpkin tops that I want to go ahead and do. My pumpkins are dry enough for that. And again, could switch to a smaller brush for this, but I thought it was just fine like that. So maybe get some stems in here for my sunflowers. Okay, maybe one last thing. I have a little bit of a brown. This is something I have pre-mixed on my palette. It's just left over. So if I remember correctly, I think it's some of my olive and burnt umber. I hope I have that right. But I just want to go in here and make some leafy stems, just multi-leaf kind of things. These are so fun. Just a quick little flick of the wrist or two for those little leaves. I personally like to not focus on getting them perfect. I think the look is a little more relaxed and comfortable, even if they're not, you know, but I also just want to enjoy painting them and, not stress if they're not just perfection. So then I just want to take a little bit, I'm just taking a bit of water on my brush, and I want to kind of fill some of these areas that just maybe need some depth behind them. And so just some leaves, just some brush marks, really just something to kind of fill some of those places. I don't think you have to have it all filled, but you know, I just like that. I think it just kind of makes it make sense, and you know, it would be kind of darker in there anyway because these flowers and all that. So I like to kind of just carry that out to some leaves and whatever kind of coming out here, and they don't have to be very methodical or, you know, anything like that. It's just kind of background. And then you can go in with a bit of your olive or, you know, whatever green you're using, and just kind of maybe go over a leaf, or you know, add some little veins in those. Just something to, again, add to the depth there. I don't always do this, but something like right here, I really had some emptiness there, and I just felt like it needed to be filled. So I like this. It's really been super fun. And these can overlap. So, you know, it's fine if they touch some other things, and because it's light, it will typically be viewed like it's in the background. So there we go with that. And I keep saying I'm going to switch my brush, and I keep not switching it. So I will go back and do another layer in my sunflowers, but I want to go ahead and work on my pitcher or watering can. And my idea for this today was to use more of a metallic brass, maybe. So that's what I'm doing today. I just thought it would be nice and warm and pretty. Now this is a paint set that I don't use very often, and so I'm going to be kind of learning on the go. I have used it, but I use it for detail. And so, you know, I probably, because of the metallics, you can sometimes have to be careful about how you layer. They don't always layer real well. And I'm lackadaisical about my brush strokes and directions, and see, so I wanna work quickly, but see, I can already see I've got some things that are just kind of funny there. So don't take it too seriously. If you're like me and, you know, you're kind of unsure, well, this is a great opportunity to play. And, you know, it does not have to be perfect. Nobody's coming after you if it's not. I promise I won't. I'll only encourage you. So just try and see what happens. I like it. And I think to just complete this up here, I will just, you know, where I have open space, I will not worry too much, but the rest of it, just kind of little strokes there, I think. And that needs to be a bit in shadow anyway, so let's just take a bit more up there. And again, don't worry about, like, you know, oh my goodness, all my leaves or whatever. Just paint little strokes around it and let whatever happens happen. But see, that's nice and really not a big deal. It's not intimidating. So now I'm just kind of starting at my shadow over here so I can do some blending. kind of drag it over, but I want this to stay kind of light to the right. And then just a bit darker up there. Cute, that's not bad. Go in for this handle. And I'm going to do the whole handle, and then I'll come back and just add a little shadow beneath it. These round brushes always impress me, because when I do something that really, you know, I'm aware I should be using a smaller brush for these strokes, and yet they come to such a fine point. They're so very close to being all-purpose in that regard, especially because they make these tiny points, and they're surprisingly able to get in these tight little spaces. Okay, so there's that, and just giving that a bit more shadow up here. I like that. That's so fun. I'm so glad I did that. Just that little bit of, oh, just a warm sparkle. I'm going to go back and kind of touch that again, kind of blend it. Just because I got a little wild right there. So, not any problems. And this this kind of brassy color could probably be incorporated somehow in the arrangement. You know, the centers of the sunflowers, maybe. I don't know if I'll do that, but I do think you have to be careful of the water. The water will push the pigment. My goodness, even the brush is kind of pushing it, so I may have overworked that, but I'm just going to kind of blend it, see if it just kind of blends out. And again, these kind of natural highlights, so that that's fine with me. Okay. And I think before I switch my brush and finish out my well, okay, never mind. Me changing my mind all over the place. I was going to add the shadow, but I'd like for the container to dry a bit first. So no, I think I will do some a little more on my sunflowers, and just another layer, some yellow here. I think I'd like to use my gold ochre. And I just like to get the paint ready as I go, and I know, you know, there are different techniques with that and getting your entire palette ready, but I don't love to spray my palette. I don't like the cracking that happens with that. Personally, this is just me, and for sure it may be ridiculous that that I have any opinion about it, but I do. So, you know, this is what works for me, and but I'm just going to go in here and add some layers of petals, like to just get another layer in there, and then some things kind of in the background. I like these things to touch and overlap. I think it helps it to stay kind of loose and maybe not quite so serious. Sometimes in between the petals. And, you know, varying the size sometimes. I like some of these slashy marks up here too. Just kind of looks like petals that kind of curl over, I guess. I'm really happy with how these are turning out. And it's just, you know, really 2 layers. just simple to add that. But it really does add so much. It just adds a lot of character, I think. We are having such nice autumn weather here in West Texas. It's such a welcome treat. Okay, I love that. And you know, just to add a little more, you can take this and just add some little, you know, some yellow peeking out behind some things. Just kind of looks like some pieces of flowers that you really can't see from the front of the arrangement. And then you can go in and soften that. Just take a little water on your brush and kind of soften those bits and spread them a little if you think they need that. I like it. Okay. And I love everything about this. I think you could easily also go in with some darker, just a darker value of your green, and with your smaller brush, maybe add some veins here. I like to do that sometimes, and sometimes I don't. I would say, you know, maybe don't always just go down the center, straight down it, but just kind of squiggle and, you know, kind of let it happen. Let your brush kind of drag itself across. That way you get some of that randomness. And I don't worry about doing that everywhere. You know, I don't think that, I don't do that for sure on every painting on my leaves, but I do think it adds something, and this seemed to, I felt like it needed it. I really like it. And I'm so happy with that gold. My goodness, that's just really fun. So now I'm taking my dark brown. Now you can use a dark brown. This dark brown is so dark, it truly is almost a black. And you can use black for this. I like this dark brown. I just like that it's just a rich, deep, dark brown. It's really wonderful for the centers of these sunflowers. But I have used black in plenty and been very happy with it. But I'm just going to go and dot to the edge of these petals, and then I want to be careful because um, I have some foreground petals there, and I don't want to obscure those or obliterate them with my dots. But I want to dot. I've done lots of sunflower tutorials, and so if you've seen any of the others, you know why. But it's because I like the look of, you know, the white of the seeds showing, which you see in those, you know, rows of seeds. But this is a really easy way to do that. You don't have to come back with gel pens or anything like that. So just leave some white in there, just dot, and, you know, take your time or be fast, whatever. I do find sometimes it seems like my first one goes real well, and then the ones after that get a bit more obscured. And I think it's because I take my time on the first one, and then I get in a hurry for the others. So I try to just be mindful the whole way through, because you want to enjoy painting from the beginning to the end. Don't get in a hurry. You know, just because you think, oh, you should be done by now, just enjoy it. I may be talking to myself, and that's okay too. And then I like to be sure that I do my centers in an oval rather than just a circle. I like to have an oval there. One thing that I sometimes do, I don't plan to do it today, but you know, you can certainly do this and you can try it. It's something fun to play with. But after your center is there, you can go in with just a tiny amount of moisture on your brush and um, and just brush in from your petals a little bit. You can, it's a good way to add a little bit more shadow or depth, and so it can be fun to do. It does tend to dull your flowers. So if you have flowers that you feel are a bit brighter than maybe you wanted, that is actually a great treatment for them. And I have a bit too much water on here. I'm discovering it's going okay, but I got some more pigment and I left a bit of water, so I felt that my center needed to be just a tad bigger, and I'm really happy with that now. I do like to be very careful not to have too much water on my brush for these centers. It is very easy for it to dip down and just kind of drip onto your painting, and it will dispense possibly a hideous amount of dark that will that can kind of obliterate a flower. So I like to be very careful about that. Oh gosh, I'm happy with this, you guys. So fun. Just making sure some of these edges on the center kind of stick out a little bit. I don't like it to be just too perfectly round. I like to see some dimension there. So my gosh, there is that. And I think I need a shadow underneath, and then just essentially done. I mean, I think it may be done. So I'm just brushing plain water right up to my can here and just kind of leaving that a bit abstract. I'm going to go back, and this time I have maybe a bit too much water, so that it's soaking into this paper quite a bit. And then let's see, maybe just a bit of dark brown, but I have a good amount of water on my brush, so I think it can handle it. Just make sure to get that right up at the edge, and then kind of, you know, let it go here and there, and then just blend a bit. And then I might even go and rinse that off, blot my brush a little, and then blend this. I like that. Super fun and pretty quick, and just a cute little fun card. So many applications for this. I'm so glad I did the gold. I do think you could go in with that brassy gold, bronze, whatever, and you could put some of that in the center of the flowers. I'm real happy with this, and I'd rather come back later if I think that that's something I want to do, but for now I want to call this finished. I hope that you enjoyed this today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please let me know in the comments if you try it. And as always, happy painting!